move on and we can talk about Tottenham Hotspur, Paul, because it looks like Sergio Reguilon is up for sale for £10 million. Why do you think the club are valuing him at such a low deal? And from Daniel Levy's point of view, how will he feel about the potential transfer with him leaving?
Listen, they're not going to be able to demand a huge fee for him because he's clear that he's not part of the manager's plans. He's been out on loan twice. He was at Manchester United, didn't set the world on fire, came back, went to Brentford, struggled to get in the team. And, people can see, it's not hard to see surplus requirements at Tottenham. If he'd gone out on loan at Manchester United, done really well, or gone out on loan at Brentford and done extremely well, the club might well be able to demand more of a fee. But that hasn't happened. And when he's so far away from the manager's plans, it's hard for the club to sit there and demand a huge fee for a player, one, that's not performed, and two, that the manager doesn't want. So you can understand a low transfer fee. He was a player that came with a decent reputation. Attacking-wise, okay, gets in the final third. Defensively susceptible, maybe looks a little bit lightweight for the Premier League. And he's clearly a player that the manager doesn't fancy. And when you're in that situation with a player who's gone out on loan, underperformed, he's not part of the manager's plans, it's very hard to sit there and demand a huge fee for them. So you can understand where they're at with it.
Pete, from their point of view then, looking at Tottenham, where are the potential suitors lying potentially? Where's he likely to move? Could he stay within the Premier League or could he potentially move into Europe, say?
Yeah, there's a bit of talk going on that Manchester United might offer him a route back to Old Trafford. Obviously, he spent 6 months there after those injuries to Luke Shaw and Terrell Malacia. So obviously Manchester United do want to strengthen in that left-back position. They've been linked with a number of left-backs. Ben Chilwell's been mentioned as well. But Reguilon, if they can get him for a cut price fee, which looks likely that Spurs would take it right now, it's maybe a deal they would look at, as they really need to bring in cover for Luke Shaw, because although Shaw is probably the number one choice at left back for Manchester United, is just his injury record means that he does miss quite a few games as well. So they'll want cover for that position. I'm sure there'll be interest from Europe as well. As Paul said, he's got a good pedigree, Reguilon. He's got a good CV, did very well in Spain with Sevilla before his move to Tottenham. He's a Spain international as well. So I'm sure there will be plenty of takers for Reguilon if Spurs do look like they're going to cash in on him this summer. And I'm sure Ange Postecoglou will just be looking to move him on and use some of that money for his own transfer plans this summer, because if a player's been loaned out twice last season, he definitely doesn't figure in his plans going forward as well. And if he was to move on and Ryan Sessegnon leaving as well, maybe Spurs might need to bring in left-back cover of their own for Destiny Udogie as well. So I just think it's be the right deal for all parties here, that if Reguilon moves on and Spurs get some money and Reguilon can move on and get his career back on track.
Pete, for Ange Postecoglou going into next season, what sort of budget is he working to this summer? I know we've spoken there about left back and potentially a striker. Are there any other positions they've targeted going into the summer transfer window?
Yeah, obviously Archie Gray spent £40 million on him, which was a big deal. They've also got Lucas Bergal, who they signed in January, coming into the club. So that bolsters the midfield area of the team. I still think he wants to bring in a centre-back. There's no surprise about that. He's looking cover for the likes of Christian Romero. And obviously, I think he needs Mickey van de Ven had a bad injury last season as well, and he was badly missed as well. So another centre-back just to bolster those ranks, I think, will be key. His own transfer kitty, there is money there to spend. There's no doubt about that. I think Ange Postecoglou has got money to spend, but that transfer kitty could be boosted by possible departures. We saw Tanganga leave earlier this week to go to Millwall, so that's more money in the bank if Reguilon was to leave for £10 million. That's also going to go towards Postecoglou's transfer kitty, and I think a centre-back and probably another forward, maybe a wide forward, if not a number 9, I think, would be the priority for Ange Postecoglou, and they don't come cheap, as we know. These attacking players are the most expensive in the transfer market right now as well. So yeah, Postecoglou, I think right now it'll probably be a case of getting those fringe players out and getting that money in, and then they'll maybe look to make a few more signings.
Paul, picking up on Lucas Bergvall, what role do you think he'll play in Ange Postecoglou's side next season? And can you see him becoming a dependable starter within the next 12 months?
Yeah, listen, he's got the number 18 shirt, so he's not come to be part of a squad and be loaned out. He's a youngster, he's got huge potential. I know a lot of people at the club think very, very highly of him, and I thoroughly expect him to be integrated into the first team squad in the same way that Archie Gray will. Both very, very young players, very, very talented players, but they've both been brought to the club to be an impact into the squad and the starting 11. They won't be on the fringes, they won't be in and around the squad or looking for loans. And I think he's one that will come in. I know he's very, very highly thought of, highly rated, and I think that he'll certainly be utilised throughout the season. Mate, listen, they're both very young. We're talking about young players, and they won't overplay them, they won't overuse them. But now with the European football coming in, they're two players who the manager will look to, and he'll utilise them throughout the season. And I'm excited to see them both play because they're both quality young players.
Paul, given the versatility of Archie Gray, where are we expecting him to play? I mean, I know technically we could argue that he could play in any position, but going forwards for Tottenham, where do you think Ange is most likely to play him going into next season?
Tottenham see him as a midfielder. They've signed him as a midfield player. I think it opens a door for Pierre Højbjerg to leave the club. He's quite openly said that if the opportunity comes for him to play regular first-team football, and at times you look at Højbjerg and you think maybe the Premier League and the way that Ange plays is a little bit too quick for him. Games passing by at times, but when he has been called upon, he's been very reliable. But Archie Gray, no doubt that the club see him as a midfielder, and that's his position. And I think those conversations will have been had before the move was sanctioned. You know, it's such a big move for such a young player. He's not going to move to a club. I know he filled in at right back for the second half of last season for Leeds, and he did extremely well. I don't think that's where he sees himself in the future. I think he's got the versatility to play there, and I think that's one thing that obviously attracts other teams to purchase Archie Gray. But I think from a Tottenham point of view, from a player's point of view, he's a central midfield player. He's got a great engine. He can play both roles, as in a holding midfielder or attacking midfielder. But also it gives Tottenham an option. He won't play there, but Pedro Porro is the number one right back, right wing back, wherever he plays. But now, one of the things that Tottenham didn't have last year was cover at a very good level. We know that Emerson Royale's played there, and he's a player that they're potentially moving on to the Saudi Pro League or wherever he's muted to be moving to. But Archie Gray gives the manager that option of cover in the right back areas should he need it, because he's shown the ability that he can play there. But predominantly he's seen as a midfielder at the club.
And to wrap up, totally, Pete, we know Spurs have properly joined the race now for Jonathan David, the talisman. What would his valuation be, please? And how many other clubs are interested in the forward? Are Spurs likely to potentially go for him, say, and then go for Ivan Toney? Where could Daniel Levy move this summer from a forwards perspective?
Yeah, he's been on the radar for a number of clubs in the Premier League for the last few years. Jonathan David had a very good goal-scoring record in France for Lille. Lille have been pretty open and admitted that they probably will lose him this summer. I think he's in the final year of his contract, so they won't stand in his way if they receive a suitable offer. £25 million has been mooted for him, so I think that's a pretty decent fee for a striker who's played at a high level in France. He's been away at the Copa America with Canada as well and helped them reach the semi-finals, and the player himself has admitted that he would be interested in a move to the Premier League. There's been other clubs linked with him as well. Chelsea, who we all know are in the market for a new striker this summer, they have looked at Jonathan David and scouted him. Also Manchester United, another club who are looking for another attacker this season. They've been mentioned, but it does look like they're going to sign Joshua Zirkzee from Bologna, so maybe their interest in David is cool, and that might open the door for Tottenham. He's definitely a cheaper alternative than an Ivan Toney, who would cost you between 50 to 60 million pounds. But yeah, he's a good player. He's a decent goal scoring record, and he's at a good age as well. I think coming into his prime of his career right now as well. So I think if Spurs were to move him, he could be a smart piece of business by Ange Postecoglou and the recruitment team as well. But it won't be a straightforward race, because I think there'll be a lot of clubs looking at him and looking at that price tag where they can maybe see he could be a bargain this summer due to his contract situation at Lille.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.